All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today. Can you remind me who was the sponsor? ברפואה שלמה. אסתר בת שרה וישלח לה בכל רפואה שלמה, רפואת הנפש, רפואת הגוף, אין נא לפנלה, אין נא לפנלה, אין נא לפנלה, בתוך שהחולה הישראל שתה בעגלה בזמן קריב, ונאמר אמן. Okay. This week's shiur and launch is sponsored by Rosalie Rudy from Surfside and Brooklyn. Thank you very much, Rosalie. Chazaku Baruch. Okay, we're going to start with a little bit of Torah, and then we're going to go into the concepts of Hilchot Shabbat. It's going to be a little complicated today because we're going to go through the principles of Hilchot Shabbat, and then we could go deeper into the halachot themselves, maybe next week. So, if you have interest in writing the principles, it would be a good idea. If you have a phenomenal memory, then you don't need to write anything. That means you're very, very smart, and I will ask you questions at the end to make sure you understood. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Some and some?
No, right.
We do. Where is all the material, the writing material that we have? Well, in the meantime that Adina does a round, I'm going to start with a little Divrei Torah. We see, it's a very important principle, that there's a pasuk that tells us that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, although the Torah was not given yet to the Bnei Israel, obviously, they already kept the Torah. It's a Gemara in Masechet Yoma. Gemara tells us that the Avot HaKedoshim, although they didn't receive the Torah, they kept it. It's interesting to know how they did that, right? Because you could say, how do you keep the Torah if you don't know about the Torah? The Torah was not given. So very quickly, first of all, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote the Torah. He didn't give it to Bnei Israel yet, but he wrote the Torah before the world was created. The Gemara even gives us a date. Tav Tav Kuf Ayin Dalet Dorot. 974 generations before the world was created. I don't know why that number, but 974 generations before the world was created, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had already written the Torah. The Zohar tells us that Hashem created the world based on the words of Torah. Hashem was looking at the Torah and the world automatically was created. Which means that the world and the Torah are intertwined. If you want the blueprints of the world, is the Torah. Everything is there. If you read Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, the shamayim va'aretz was created automatically. The word of Hashem created the world. So that's interesting. That means that there's a correlation, very, very tight correlation between the Torah and nature. I don't know if you remember a famous midrash that Abraham Avinu discovered God by looking at the world. He looked at nature. Remember, there's a famous midrash that says that he looked at the sun. So the sun, everybody was worshipping the sun. Sun is strong. Sun, you can't look at it. It seems like a supernatural power. He looked at it, but then when the night came or when a cloud came, the sun, dissipated, disappeared. So then he thought maybe the cloud is more strong than the sun. And then when the night came, the night is stronger than the day. And then the moon is really the high, divinity of the night. But when the next morning, again, the sun came, it's the sun again. It was very confusing until he reached the conclusion that it must be that there's one entity that governs everything. And that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a very simple equation, but that teaches us that there is a straight connection between the world and the Torah. So if you're smart enough, if from the Torah you create the world, then from the world you should be able to connect to the Torah. It's not easy, but it's doable. Somebody maybe of the caliber of Abraham Avinu, it was something that he was able to reach. It was something that he was able to do. So we know that Abraham Avinu discovers, nice voice, Abraham Avinu discovers the Torah and the mitzvot. All the Avot HaKedoshim, they follow the Torah and the mitzvot. Based on that, maybe they had a tradition. We also know that they had Ruach HaKodesh, they were Nevi'im. So they must have had, with all that together, they had an inspiration of the Torah. You know, some mitzvot are commanded. Abraham is commanded to do a Brit Milah, for example, etc. Other mitzvot also. Everybody asks the famous question, how is it possible that Yaakov Avinu married two sisters? Marrying two sisters is not allowed. It's clear in the Torah that the sister of the wife is considered erva. It's asur to marry her. How is it possible that Yaakov, who supposedly followed the mitzvot, he married two sisters? Famous question that many different commentaries deal with. One of the famous commentaries that deals with this is the Ramban, Nachmanides. Ramban says something that is incredible and powerful. I hope you don't take it the wrong way. Ramban says really the ultimate place and space where Torah is supposed to take place is Eretz Israel. It's the land of Israel. So he says, Yaakov, when he married the two sisters, they were not living in Israel. They were living outside of Israel. He was able to, because the Torah was only commanded to be, again, I'm trying to make it a little more philosophical, the space, which is Israel, and the time, which is depending on the time of the calendar. The Torah is telling you, but it has to be in Israel. And therefore, as long as he was outside of Israel, he was not really commanded with the Torah. And he did not follow the Torah laws. Inside Israel, yes. That's why as soon as they enter the land of Israel, Rachel dies. They cannot be together. It's complex, that answer. It's complex. Why would it be that outside of Israel you don't have a Torah? It seems a little, so outside Israel I can do whatever I want, inside Israel no. Now Ramban says something very interesting. He says even for us there's ramification there. He says really the Torah was given even for us to be commanded in Israel. You were commanded to follow the mitzvot in Israel. Outside of Israel, you're training for when you go to Israel. It's a very interesting concept. Obviously, we don't follow that halachically. And I would like to share with you another answer that is very powerful. Ask you a question. Before the Torah was given, there were other laws. I'm going to call them social laws, logical laws, laws, maybe cultural laws, whatever you want to call them. One of the most basic laws in any society is that a word is holy. A word is important. Many times in business, not many times, every time in business, a word is everything. You negotiate, you talk. Can you imagine you go to a business meeting? He's so cute. You get to a business meeting and in the meeting you reach an agreement. Okay? Then you say, okay, now we're going to put everything on contract. You come the next week, you have it reviewed by lawyers, they see the contract, you're about to sign, and in the contract it says the opposite of what you said that you negotiated. That's cheating. They'll tell you, well, we didn't sign anything, but we negotiated a lot of stuff. You can't just come and ignore everything you spoke about. That's not how business is done. Although we need a paper and we sign and it's reviewed and sometimes it's apostille. How do you call it? You have to notarize. No, there's more than notarize. Is apostille. It's like higher than that. Whatever the case may be. But a word is holy. That means a word is binding. When you shake a hand, you have a handshake. You say something. It's binding. And then you put it on paper to have a recollection of what happened, to have a document for years later. So, okay. But really what's binding is the word. The signature is just to make sure that you have a document that proves it. Maybe they change, maybe they sell shares, so you have to have a protection for yourself. But really what's binding is the negotiation you do with a person when you reach an agreement. That's what it is. Any basic of society, he likes the word. The word is holy, right? Any basic of society is about talking and respecting what we say. Can you imagine you say something, the next day you say something else? There's no way you could relate to people. It's a disaster if you do that. Lying is the worst. The word is holy. Now I ask you a question. For a minute I'm going to go back to the mitzvot. If you ask in the world of halacha, the Avot HaKedoshim, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, when they follow the Torah, is it halacha or is it chumrah? For them, it's a stringency. They don't have to follow the Torah. They decided we are at the level that we want to already follow the Torah, although we were not commanded to follow the Torah, right? That's evident. They were only obligated to follow the Torah from the moment they received the Torah in Har Sinai. You accepted the Torah, now you have a document. But before that, it's chumrah. Listen to this beautiful pshat. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says, there's a problem. Yaakov Avinu gave his word to Rachel that he's going to marry her. He was tricked that Lavan gave him his first daughter first, so he gets married to Leah, And now there's a problem. He gave his word to Rachel that he's going to marry her. But at the same time, he's not allowed to marry her because the Torah said not to. What is more important at this point for him? To keep his word or to keep the halacha, which is chumrah? It's not halacha. For us, it's halacha. You can't. If I promise to 5 sisters, I'm going to marry all of you, chacham balayla, don't talk things that you can't do. But here, there's no halacha. But he knows his stringency is to follow the mitzvot, although they were not given. So now you have to evaluate the situation. On one side, he gave his word to Rachel that he's going to marry her. On the other side, he can't because he decided that he's not going to marry 2 sisters. What's more important? Says Yaakov Kamenetsky, for him, his word is more important. He had to honor. It's not that he was doing against the halacha. The opposite. Halacha is telling you, what do you do in a situation? You have a situation, you have to decide, what do you do? Well, in this situation, the halacha, since he was not commanded to not marry 2 sisters, and he was just a plus, his halacha was, he has to follow his word. Therefore, he married Rachel because he had a stronger halacha to honor his word, much stronger than not marrying 2 sisters, since he was not commanded to do so. And that's why he honored his word and he married Rachel. Isn't this a beautiful concept? Honoring your word. So although we cannot honor our word if it contradicts the halacha, but it gives us a lot of strength when it comes to chumrot. You want to do chumrah, sometimes you do something more stringent. If it's going to go against something else, maybe it's not worth it. I'll give you a perfect story that illustrates that from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky himself. You already writing notes? Wow. You're also writing notes. I'm telling you, these notes is amazing. You lost all credibility on the notes. But look at that. She said she's going to write notes. Story, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Do you know the halacha, the chumrah bereset of Gebrot? That's how you say it? You should help me there. Yeah. Hopefully it's only on Pesach, not all year round. Eh? So the Ashkenazim, there's 2 customs. Some Ashkenazim, they could wet the matzah. Some Ashkenazim, the Machmir, they don't even wet the matzah. Okay? So they don't dip the matzah in anything. It's hard enough already. You have to eat the matzah. They don't dip it. God bless them. By the Ashkenazim, Hasidic Jews, usually, they're very stringent with that. They don't dip the matzah with anything. That's how you grew up, right? Something like that? No? I thought you had some Chabad aspect, no? Sorry. Okay, so some Chabads, they don't dip the matzah in anything. We don't follow that rule. You know why they don't do that? Because maybe there's some flour that remained on the matzah. And when you dip it in a liquid, it's become chametz. We don't follow that stringency because we hold that even if there would be some flour in there, once the flour went inside the oven, it's burnt flour. Burnt flour does not become chametz. So that's a discussion that there is. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was a Lithuanian. Bachur Yeshiva was in Yeshiva, and the Lithuanian who are not Hasidic, they don't follow that stringency. So he would eat wet matzah, no problem. What happened was that when he was in Yeshiva, it's not like today that Yeshiva had a dorm and Yeshiva had a dining room, and if they didn't like it, they ordered Uber Eats, and if they don't like this one, they do something else. None of that existed. The way it was is that yeshivas were so poor, they didn't have money to have a kitchen in the yeshiva. So how are the boys supposed to eat? Besides, the boys, they stayed for 5 years straight. They didn't go home. There was no money to go home. Yeshiva, poverty in Europe pre-war was very harsh. They go to yeshiva at 12, 13, 14 years old. They wouldn't come back until who knows when. You know, when they said goodbye to a child, it was real. They didn't know when they're going to see them. Maybe they get married over there. They don't have a way to call their parents. Impossible. It's terrible. It's very difficult. Anyways, so what did they do in the yeshivas? All yeshivas were inside a town, a city. People would take turns to host boys. So there's families that say, you know what, this week I could have 2 boys in my house for lunch. The other guy said, well, I could have 1 boy for dinner. The other guy could have 3 boys for a month. Big ashir, this guy did. Each one, you know, and like that, they found a way to have meals. Some rabbis who were at the time, they say that they were starving. They were literally starving. Many times they skipped dinner. There was nowhere to go. The family said, I'm sorry, today was not a good day. I don't have bread. People had hungry. Lo alenu. This boy, Yaakov Kamenetsky, who became a big Rosh Yeshiva in America, when he was in Yeshiva, he was appointed to a certain family for Pesach. Pesach, they stayed in Yeshiva. For Pesach, he was appointed to that family. But he was not comfortable with the kashrut of that family. He saw certain things, they don't really know what they're doing. He felt uncomfortable. What do you do? What do you do? He's a Bachur Yeshiva. He's hosted by this family. It's Pesach. He thinks maybe there's chametz in that house. He can't tell them, no, thanks. I don't trust you. It's very hard. It's very harsh. They're nice enough that they opened the house. How are you supposed to react? So he came up with a genius idea. He said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. In my family, we're very stringent. We don't eat gebroks. We don't dip the matzah in there. So it's nothing wrong with you. It's just, and in Lithuania, again, nobody did that. He said, I come from a town where we're very Machmir. We don't dip the matzah, and I see that you guys dip. So nothing personal. If you say it like that, it's fine. You know, they don't take it back. Oh, okay. No problem. Don't worry. You know, it's like if an Ashkenaz says to somebody, I can't eat in your house because you eat kitniot, I don't. Okay, no problem. There's no offense here. I don't eat givrot. You guys do, so it's not going to work. Thank you so much. I don't know what he did for a week. He was probably starving, but because of that, he saved the situation. From then on, he kept givrot because he said, I don't eat givrot to that family. His entire life, he kept that chumrah that he did not normally have to because he's not Hasidic, but he kept it because he said it to them. That's the holiness of a word. However, his family, they all ate gibrot. He said, I don't have to impose a chumrah that I took because of X, Y, Z reason on them. It's not their fault that I had that story. So he said to them, you eat gibrot? I can't. Holiness of a word, but don't impose your chumrah on somebody else. You do chumrah, you have to think, is it going to hurt someone else? If your stringency is going to hurt someone else, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Or you have to consult sometime. Many times in a couple, you're going to have one who wants to do a chumrah over another person. I'll give you a case, you're gonna laugh your head out. Hope you don't take it the wrong way again. I one time was consulted by a woman. And she said to me, she had a little situation with her husband, was not doing too well. I said, but what does he say? What's going on? What happened? You've been married for a very long time. He said, well, you're not as attractive as you used to be. That could be true. Hello. Okay, they had to have an open discussion. But wait.
He said it or she said it?
He said it. She pushed. Okay, I'll tell you. What do you do in this case? So I don't think, she came to talk to me. I said, you allow me to answer? She said, of course. You're not going to like what I have to say. I said, I've seen, the progress. You became from being tzniut to being super extra duper tzniut. Did you consult with your husband before? Did you have a talk about this? You were always modest and all that stuff. You became extra super chumrah on that area, right? Did you ever talk about this? He said, no, I took stringency on myself. So maybe that's what he's talking about. Huh? Are you allowed to take a chumrah and say you're going to hurt someone else? He's your husband. Maybe you should talk about it. Is he okay with that? Maybe it's a decision that has to be spoken with two people. You're married to that person. You should at least give the courtesy of that individual who is paying the bills a conversation, at least. No, it's not. Once you get married, everything is shared. Even when you hurt someone, yes. Guy is married to this lady. She decided to cover herself like who knows what. I said, with all due respect, he may not be wrong. You're doing a chumrah. I said, you allow me to talk. You came to me, I'm going to tell you what I think. You cover yourself more than you're supposed to, right? Yeah, I'm not. You're doing great. You're doing more and more and more. One side you would say, oh, God bless you. Oh, kol hakavod. I said, I disagree. Not God bless you, nothing. I said, no kol hakavod. Anytime you're going to go from halakha, you're going to do chumrah, you have to think twice. Halakha, fine, you're going to do it. By the way, halakha is perfection. Hashem gives you the Torah, it's perfection. I always give this mashal. You have a mountain. Halakha is the right, perfect path in life. Torah comes, tells you, this is what I want. That's the guide. We said the world and the Torah, they're all together. So he's telling you, hey, the world, I didn't just build it and I tell you, okay, good luck now. Go figure it out. A lot of people are like that. Go figure out what's ethical, what's not, what's stealing, what's not, what's killing, what's not. We have a Torah. They tell you embarrass someone, you're killing someone. You have things that we wouldn't have thought on our own. That's called the perfect middle. The shvil hazahav. The perfect, the golden shvil, the golden path. What happens? I compare it to the peak of a mountain. You're on a mountain. You ever saw those beautiful videos on top of the mountain now that they have the what's it called, those machines? The drones. Those drones, they go, you could see, wow, unbelievable. And you have a path. Sometimes it's like this and that's it. Sometimes it's the peak of a mountain that you could walk, and some people walk there. You walk too much to the right or you walk too much to the left, you fall. There's only one path. It's right there. You do a little bit too much kulot, you fall. A little bit too much chumrot, you fall also. It's right there. You do chumrah, you have to think before you do it. And if you have a family, you have to discuss it with all due respect. It's not something personal. No, I don't agree. It's something personal. It's personal as long as you're single. Once you get married, you discuss with the person, the other person. If it has nothing to do with the person, the way you do your tefillah, if it's going to be another 25 seconds, that's a different story. But if you're talking about something that has to do with the other person, there's a certain attractiveness that has to be both ways. Well, you're very nice. You wanted to be Machmir. And what about the other individual? It doesn't work like that. With all due respect, it's something that has to be discussed. She thanked me forever. Now, Baruch Hashem, they're doing much better. They go to the beach on Sunday, you know, bikini, the whole thing. No, that's not. Already? I didn't even start the class.
It's a little controversial, I think, I don't know. But let's say, like...
I mean, what I said is pretty controversial to begin with.
I'm talking about, like...
It's more than that?
On my kids, let's say, because I don't like that they were in school on Shabbat. It bothers me. It really bothers me. And I think it's like, there's some opinions that...
Right, it's borderline, yes, it's correct.
Can I be more Machmir? I tell my kids, no, you're not allowed to. So am I being now Machmir on my kids?
I think it's a very good question, by the way. Very, very good question. It's not only about the scripture, about the love things, right? So it really depends on the age of the kids, right? If they're in age that they could understand what I'm saying here. If you have a lachan and you want to do things to make sure that it's okay, or things like this, you know, it's one thing to discuss with them. First of all, husband and wife have to be on board. And number two, they want to give a certain line to the family. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's different than husband and wife who are not aligned. That's very different. Now, but regarding what you're saying, I'm going to say something else. Because it's very hard. When I lived in Lakewood, I'm talking over 20 years ago, I used to take care of a boy. That boy was off the derech. His father, in Lakewood, his father was a Ben Torah, he was learning in Kollel. This kid was 16 years old, and he was completely off it. He was not Shomer Shabbat, he was not eating kosher, nothing. And they asked me for help. I was young, I was 22, 23. They asked me for some help. Don't ask me how. I connected with the boy, we started having conversations, etc. And at one point, he said something that left me hanging my whole life. He said, you know, my father decided that he wanted the Kollel lifestyle, right? Did he ask us for permission for that? Did he consult with us, his children? I said, well, but he got married before you came into the picture, right? And he decided that lifestyle before. He said, precisely. The kid was brilliant. He said, he had us, right? My parents had us. They gave birth to us. Did they think before they had the babies, we should really think if our lifestyle is okay with them? I can't anymore. You don't have chupon? Huh? He doesn't use? Maybe he should. He is very cute. That's why I was patient till now. Have a good day. Okay. So this boy asked me, did my parents consult with us if we were okay with that? It was a very strong argument, if you think about it. You're willing to give up your comfort, you're willing to give up even some bare minimum. Kollel people, this was a large family, they had a lot of expenses, they didn't cover bare minimums. Did you think of us when you did that? What do you answer to this guy? What can I answer to this guy? You know, this is not your choice. You made a choice. You could make those choices on your own. But if you got married and you have kids, you have to take first responsibility for them. And then you see if your Kollel lifestyle could go with it. Good for you. If you can't, then you have to stop. That was his argument. Why do we have to go through that? I had nothing to answer to this kid. Nothing. I said, I don't know. I can't answer because I'm not your parents. But the first thing I taught him is, but your argument is on point. I said, on point. And by the way, just completely out of the subject, When you do that to a teenager, to somebody who has questions, you give them life. He said to me, you are the first person in my entourage who ever said to me that my question was good. And really, between you and me, the answer does not matter. Because I can't answer that, and the parents can't even answer that either. Father's going to say, okay, now I'm 45 years old. I learned Torah, I dedicated my life. I may have made it's a tough call. What are you going to say? Don't learn Torah because he decided to learn Torah. The kids are born in that family. You deal with it. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't know if the kid is right, the parents are right. I have no idea. We could debate all day long, and we're going to have argument one way or the other. But that kid needed only one thing, that somebody should tell him, your question is on point. Your question is great. I validate your question. You're not Mishnun, you're not cruel, you're not a rebel, you're not a bad person, you're not a Rasha for having that question. Your question is good. That guy today, he's married to a Jewish girl. He has kids. He's in Derech Torah, Baruch Hashem. And I'm so happy that I had a lot to do with this, because after that conversation, he became Shomer Shabbat. Just like that. That's all he needed. Somebody to say, you know what? You're not crazy. That's all. Just say, you're not nuts. You're not crazy. So I don't know. It's not a simple topic. So you're saying, Chumrah, the family, etc. Those are small things. You want to put a certain derech in your family. That's fine. But his question is a strong one. I don't have an answer to that question. I don't know.
Respecting your parents. You usually have to respect your parents, whatever they want.
When your parents are not feeding you,
Yeah, that's a problem.
and you're 16 years old and you are rebellious, at the end he was kind of rebellious, and he's asking a question. He's just saying, where are we in all that? Did you consult with your babies before you had them, if you could bring them up? Question is strong. I don't have an answer. I guess that's the answer, maybe. You're the parents, you decide, but you take a risk at this point. I don't know. But that answers maybe your question. As a parent, you take the path of your family. You got to be careful also. It depends on the society where you live. I'll give you another example. There was my father-in-law, for example. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they moved from Argentina to Mexico. In Argentina, in the social circle that they had, you know, my wife's age, she's playing at 74, how old are you, 75? 80. So I'm saying 60 years ago, when my wife turned bat mitzvah, or around that age, it was a little bit of a dilemma. In Argentina, in the social circle that they, again, forgive me if I'm wrong, but the social circle that they had, they did not make bat mitzvah parties or anything. They made this small thing, maybe in the house with some girls that came, you know, friends that came, and they made a little something. In Mexico, bat mitzvah was like a big deal. So they made a party, like today. See, sometimes you go to a bat mitzvah, what happened? It's bigger than a wedding. Not like that, but in their circle, they did, you know, parties, and they did things like this. So they had a dilemma. From one side, they just moved, you know, from another country, or a few years prior to that, and she was 8, 9, I don't know. So they moved a couple of years before, so they still have the mentality where they come from, and said, what are we going to do for the bat mitzvah? From one side, we don't do that. That's not how we used to. From another side, where we moved to, that's how they do it. So he was smart enough to say, I don't want my daughter to feel any different than the people where we live. So let's do something. That's what happened to me. Not really? Yeah, it is. Oh, so I remember well. I think it's a very smart way of doing things. You have to also take into consideration where you live, who you hang out with, etc. You can, and then
that's the argument. All the kids do it. That's
If
but
you're going to set a rule that it's going to be broken because all the kids do it, you might avoid that. Choose your battles.
right. But there are things that you're going to say, I don't care if everybody eats ham, I'm not going to let you eat ham, right? So it's every case is different. Again, you have halacha and chumrah. On halacha, it's not negotiable. On chumrah, it is negotiable. Before you do a chumrah, you got to think 15 times and really think if it's going to be a constructive chumrah or it's not going to be a constructive chumrah. That's why we're here and we get the big bucks. You have my number?
He's on the roll today.
Huh?
You're on the roll today.
That's right. Today? Every day. I tell you what, I took this, like this is my life mission, to be clear about that. What is halacha and what is chumrah? I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just telling you it's good to know what is halacha and what is chumrah. Because of these cases, because of this situation, very, very important. Chumrah could be destructive, not constructive. It could be constructive also, but you got to think twice. The halacha is not negotiable. This is halacha. End of story.
Rabbi, so the scooter, what is halacha?
It's not the topic today. Now. It's not the topic today, even if you use big names. It's still not the topic today. It's still not the topic. Look, she's not gonna give in. These French people, I'm telling you, they're so stubborn. They're not gonna give in.
You know what? When you buy tshuva, it's true. When you start and I don't know, you always want chumrah. You listen to chumrah, you stick to the chumrah, and then you realize it's not always so.
That's right.
It's not good.
That's right. You have to be educated, and that's the best introduction for our class. Hilchot Shabbat, and every halacha really is really that. To be ignorant is the worst thing that could happen to a person. For two reasons. The simple reason is, when you're ignorant, you make a lot of mistakes. And if you decided to be Shomer Shabbat, as you should, you're not going to know how to be Shomer Shabbat unless you know the halachot of Shabbat. That's pretty simple. But it's also true on the other side. Because I would like to tell you, based on what Ilanit just said, I agree with you. When people are Bal Tshuva, they don't know. When they don't know, they do chumrot. When they do chumrot, again we go back to the chumrah. There are chumrot, there are stringencies that you do because you studied it. And you say, you know what, there's a machloket here, I want to be more meticulous. That's fine. I mean, again, it has to be discussed. There's halacha, there's one book, Shulchan Aruch. You want to do a little better because you studied it. It's called an educated stringency. You learned the topic, you learned we learned kashrut, we learned a lot of stuff. You say, you know what, I'm still not comfortable with that because, not because I'm not comfortable myself, because I studied and here, this chacham holds like that, this chacham holds like that. That's called educated chumrah. But most chumrah that we do are uneducated. They're usually done because I don't know. Because I don't know, I do it. It's perfect timing to share with you something. It's something I shared with my wife yesterday. There's an organization in Israel called PUA. PUA, they are there for infertility. It's a huge support system for infertility. Couples who need help. They'll give advice, I think even financially they help. I don't know all the details. PUA, it's also a halachic institute because when you go through treatments, etc., there are a lot of halachot and questions that come with it. So it's a guide for that. They made a research that you're going to fall off your chair. If you don't fall off your chair, you didn't understand the research. The research goes like this. A lot of couples, they get married and they observe, of course, the halachot of Taharat HaMishpacha. They're complex. They're very complex. Even rabbis who learn 20, 30 years the topic, they have questions. Sometimes it's not clear. It's a very complex halachot. I'm not going to go into that. That's tomorrow's class with my wife. But in the meantime, something happens. Some women and men, they're uncomfortable asking questions. They're uncomfortable. They teach them if they learned correctly, they teach them, hey, you have to do bedika. If you have a question, call your rabbi. Some people think they're smarter. So I'm not calling. I don't know. I'm embarrassed. The rabbi, okay, no problem. Don't ask. What do? Chumrah. They see a stain. They see something. I'm not going to call. I'm not going to lower myself to call. You go to the doctor, it's okay. The rabbi, no. Okay, fine, no problem. Don't call. Rabbis, they don't get paid per phone call. You understand? The less you call, the better. So you're not doing a favor to yourself when you don't call, right? Embarrassing, no problem. Embarrassing, no problem. No problem. You don't want to do a pap smear once every. It's embarrassing, no problem. Some people died from that, Okay, But each one with their thing. Listen to the numbers. You're going to fall off your chair. Pua Institute did the research. They took 25 couples who were on that path. We don't ask questions. So what do you do when you see a stand up? That's it, nida. Okay, chazaku baruch. They did a research. They said we need 25 couples who are ready to change just for a research purpose. We're going to appoint one personal rabbi to each couple. You don't know the rabbi. You're not embarrassed. You don't know him. It's by phone. You drop it in a mailbox. You never meet the guy. That's great, right? Great. By the way, it's the worst thing. I'll explain in a minute why. It's the worst thing. But because this is history. If the rabbi knows that last time you had a problem and this time there's a repetition, if it happens 3 times, he's going to say, oh, there's a makkah, you don't have a problem. Pa, 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 pa. If it's a different rabbi every time, it's like going to each time a different OBGYN. It's ridiculous. Say, no, you need to have your doctor follow a certain path. He knows what happens. Same thing, but with halakha. Same thing. So it's the worst thing you could do is to go and pick around and check one day with one and one day with the next one. Horrible. Aseh lechadav. Make one rabbi, that's it. If you're embarrassed, jump from the Twin Towers. Now, listen to me. I know you can understand why I'm so upset. Listen to this. They appointed 25 couples, one rabbi. In Israel, there's tons of rabbis. So, one, they don't know. No embarrassment. For X amount of time. And every time they had the sheila, they had to ask. Do you know how many couples got pregnant? 76% of those couples seeking to get pregnant, which means they were ready to pay $20,000, $30,000 for IVF, IVI, etc. All the different possibilities. Ready for treatments to put tens of thousands of dollars. They say, hold on, just before we do that, we're just going to appoint a rabbi to you. They had a sheila. No, that's not nida. Oh, okay. So at time of ovulation, they were able to have a baby. 76%. Not 2 couples. 76%. It means approximately 20 couples, 19 couples had a baby. That's what happens when we do chumrah, when we don't know. Oh, I saw a stain. Oh, that's it. Nida. Chazaku baruch. 2 thumbs up. Being ignorant is the worst thing that could happen to a person. For both sides. Because you make mistakes and you make chumrah. So you go on the mountain, you go like this. You're skiing up and down. Like that. No. Stay there. So you have to learn your halachot and ask questions when you have them. Nothing wrong with that. That's why we need to learn Hilchot Shabbat. That was a cool introduction, no? Huh? Come on. That was good. No. I'm not finished. Huh? I said that. I made the advertisement. Tomorrow is that class. I'm not going any more than that, but that's... Anyways, so let's start a little bit. I know it's late, like always, but at least we got an introduction. Why we need to study the halachot. One of the biggest mistakes when it comes to Hilchot Shabbat, it's a little bit uneducated mistake, is the difference between melacha and avodah. Let me explain. The Torah says, Kol melacha lo ta'asu. You don't do melacha. People translate loosely melacha as job. So they say to me, you mechalel Shabbat. You work on Shabbat. You're right, I work on Shabbat. But I'm not mechalel Shabbat. It has nothing to do one with the other. The melacha is, we know the 39 melachot. What's called the 39 melachot. The 39. So there's no good word for that. Well, how would you translate 39 works? Creative works, but it doesn't have to. Work always uses a connotation. There's 3 mistakes there. One is the most, common misconception would be employment. So if you're working on Shabbat, that's what it means that you're not allowed to work on Shabbat. So anything else would be allowed. That's not true. And I'll give you a simple example. Let's imagine that there's somebody, I had the question, halakha l'maaseh. I have a friend, he's a painter. This painter, he has two jobs, painting and selling the paintings, right? Obviously painting on Shabbat you can. But theoretically, how do you sell a painting? You know how you sell a painting? You sell it yourself. Nobody's going to pay $10,000, $20,000 for a painting unless they talk to the painter. It's really about the personality of the individual, the message that is there. It's all about talking. So he asked me a question one day. He said, I have a big problem. I have a studio, and that studio is closed on Shabbat. Now, everything when it comes to art is about, well, everything. Most of it starts from passage. People who are walking in the street, they pass by your gallery, they see paintings. Oh my God, it's beautiful. What are the 2 days that people walk the most? Saturday and Sunday. Saturday is out, so I have Sunday only. From Monday to Friday, I paint. Nobody walks in. It's very hard to get a walking person. You go to Las Olas, for example, full of galleries. Or on Worth Avenue in Palm Beach, you have tons of galleries. It's all about people who are walking. Go on a Monday afternoon, Tuesday afternoon. There's nobody there. It's very empty. So I thought about it, and I'm like, hold on. What kind of work is to have a gallery open? How do you sell? Besides, nobody buys a $20,000 painting just like that. Oh, I like it here. Usually it takes time. You talk to the person, and so they like you, they come back the next day. So technically speaking, right? That's just technically speaking. That's not what I tell him, but between you and me. Technically speaking, let's say he opens his gallery on Shabbat. He goes to shul, Shabbat morning, he prays, he does kiddush, chazak u'baruch. He says, you know what, I'm going to go to the gallery. What do you do in the gallery? Nothing. I take a book of Torah and I sit by my desk. If someone enters, they come in, they ask me a question. Oh my God, I like this painting. What is it? Can I talk about my painting? Why not? I'm telling them about an image, how beautiful it is, what it has behind it. Usually this painter happens to be a spiritual painter. Can I talk about spirituality through a painting to people who potential clients? But I'm not selling today. My machine is out. I'm not charging. Theoretically, could that be? Why not?
There's an intent, though.
I agree with you, and that's why I taught him, let's do something else. Why don't you hire a goy or a goya to be there? Because really, we're going to learn this halachot. Hiring a goy or a goya to be there, there's no melacha. They're not doing any of the 39 melachot. At the end of the story, you tell me, well, it can't be another person because, again, they want to talk to the artist. They want to talk to the artist. Okay, it's fine. I said, look, it's not Shabbat-oriented thing. But I'm just giving you this example to start understanding. Has nothing to do with employment. Has nothing to do with working. Has everything to do with creative work. Creating work comes from the 39 melachot. Where is this magical number coming from? This magical number is coming from a derasha in the Torah. It says ve'ele is gematria 39. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi had a tradition that there was 39 melachot. The 39 works. Again, I don't have a good word for melacha. The 39 melachot, we're going to call them. The 39 melachot, they come from the construction of the Mishkan. Because in that context, it was said, Lo ta'aseh kol melacha ve'amelacha et hadayam. When they used to create the Mishkan in the desert, they used to make the Mishkan. There was a lot of steps in order to have this Mishkan in place. So you had to make the wood, and you had to put the columns, and you have to carry the columns, and you have to paint the things. So all the 39 melachot are always going to be inspired and coming from the 39 works, steps that existed in the Mishkan. Since the word melacha, which is very technical, is only used in the construction of the tabernacle, in the Mishkan, and in the context of Shabbat, it's called the Gezerah Shavah. Melacha, melacha. The same word, appellation, is called melacha. Whatever it includes is going to be the same thing for the halachot of Shabbat. This is the source of the 39 works that we're going to go through. So far, we good? More or less. You don't have to know the 39. We're just giving example what it means to have a melacha. It has nothing to do with employment. It has nothing to do with technology. Actually, technology is for sure not from the Torah. There was no technology at the time of the Torah. So it's not this. And it has nothing to do with toiling. Some people think it's about an effort. So very uneducated people are going to tell you, I don't understand. Maybe at the time of the Torah, when you tell me it's asur to turn on a fire, yeah, of course, because you had to take, several, this is classic, several pieces of stones. That's like the most uneducated thing. And the pieces of wood, and you put the glass, and then finally you're going to have a fire. That's a real melacha. But you come home and you just do click. That's melacha. Who told you that melacha has to do with toiling? Who told you the melacha has to do with effort? Nothing to do one with the other. Again, it's a misconception of the word melacha. It's not avoda. It's not amal. It's not the words that have to do with sweating. You could take your table of Shabbat, your dining room table, carry it on your shoulders the entire day, and you're not doing any melacha. You know how much you're going to toil with that? It's not asur. It's only asur to do a melacha, not a amal. So this misconception is important. I'll give you another example where we need to go a little bit deeper. In the 39 works that the Torah talks about, there's something called Av and something called Tolda. Av is loosely translated the father. Tolda, a derivative. It's like if you say the head of chapters and then the smaller titles. Okay. So I'll give you an example so you grasp what it is. The melacha of zorea, for example, planting. Is planting. Planting literally means you take a seed and you put it inside the ground so that it's ready to grow. The Gemara says you have a tolda. What's the derivative of that? Anything that would grow a plant. So if you water your plant on Shabbat, it's not zorea, you didn't plant a new plant, you didn't put a new seed inside the ground, but you did help this plant to grow. If you prune your trees just by cutting a little bit the leaves, it's going to grow better. That's how they do it. So that's another derivative. It's called tolda. You have Av and you have tolda. The father and the derivative. And then you have derabanan. Derabanan, they tell you, for example, you eating outdoors, a picnic on Shabbat with drinks? Really? How is that possible? You're going to be holding a drink and it's going to fall on the floor. If you're in a picnic, in the outdoor, it's going to water the plant. So Chacham said, hold on. If watering the plant is asur minat Torah, Tolda is not derabanan. Tolda is biblical. It's minat Torah. It's just part of the same thing. Why would you eat outside? You're going to eat outside, it's going to spill everywhere. You're watering your plants. That's an example. I'm trying to make one structure so you understand how it works. Now, a very important halacha when it comes to rabbinic things. We can't invent new stuff. Anything rabbinic that has been discussed is inside the Gemara. Once the Chachamim sealed the Talmud, we do not have the authority to add new stringencies that are not written. And that's very, very, very important. A lot of times, sometimes some Rabbanim, they felt, and that has to do maybe with the scooter, they felt that in their community they needed to strengthen a certain area. That cannot be binding for eternity. It may be a technical thing that in their community they needed to be more strong. We're going to see a lot of that. The Eruv in Mexico until today, the Eruv is a big controversy. Do they accept the Eruv? They don't accept it. The Eruv is old. He's very, very old. The Eruv is, the concept of the Eruv is very, very old.
Of Sephardi.
No, if it's something for Shabbat or not for Shabbat.
We'll see. In general concepts, sometimes you have chumrot of a place. It doesn't make it asur. It only makes it asur for that place. If you belong to that community or that, okay. So then the certain, or minhagim, they have a certain minhag. But you can't add a new gezerah once the chachamim sealed all these things. You cannot add them. That's very, very important for further discussions. What time is it? 1:30? Okay, we continue from here next week. Be'ezat Hashem. Have a great day, ladies. You could, I'm here, you could come
So,
here.
Rabbi, for things that are with technology, everything that comes after the Gemara was